The XPS 9710 is the latest big productivity laptop from Dell. This promises to have a pretty serious set of internal components, very decent battery life, and a screen that's bigger than both my MacBook Air and iPad taped together. But how has it held up over the past week of use? Let's find out. Oh yeah, that was a solid slam. What's up everyone, I'm the Everyday Dad, and if I can figure it out, you can figure it out. Okay, yes, I really like this laptop, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. Normally, I go for the smaller laptop and smaller tech overall, but recently, with how much I've liked my iPhone 12 Pro Max, I've kind of started to err on the side of having tech that can match what I've got at my house when I'm traveling, and I think I'm starting to accept that that might take up a bigger footprint than things I've used in the past. Leading to the XPS 17 here. First off, let's cover the specs and ordering options if this is your first time hearing about this both large, but also smally large, that's deep, laptop. There are three distinct base level models for the XPS 17. The lowest end comes in at $1,549, and for that money you'll get the 6-core Intel i5 11400H, 8GB of RAM, 512GB solid state drive, and an integrated graphics card. There are a few additional processor/graphics combinations available, and what I really consider to be the lowest end useful spec configuration is the middle tier one with the 8-core Intel i7 11800H, NVIDIA RTX 3050 graphics card, 16GB of RAM, and that same 512GB solid state drive. This version will run you $2,049, and coincidentally is the model that we've got here in the studio and is the one that I purchased. You can also spec that all the way up to the highest end Intel Core i9 11980HK processor, still with the RTX 3050, 64GB of RAM, and a 2TB solid state drive with a 4K touchscreen. That's a lot of tech and a lot of power in any laptop, and that bad boy also has a lot of price tag coming in at $3,849, which is an oof amount of money. Now, I don't exactly know on the level when we end up being an oof amount of money, but yes, $3,849 definitely counts as that. And what's kind of frustrating here is I used to say at this point in the video, I'd be like, well, for like $1,000 you could build a PC that has power rivaling Deep Blue, so maybe you don't need to spend almost $4,000 on a laptop. But I can't really do that anymore because it's so hard to compare that to a custom-made PC. I mean, look at the price of computer components. It's not what I would call a stable place. A $600 or $700 graphics card that is never in stock, and you have to pay like $2,000 for it to scalpers. Okay, that's the second oof of the video. No more oofs in the video. Okay, so let's talk about the things that I've liked and the things that I haven't liked about the XPS 17 after using it this week. Let's start off with the positives, because you know what? I feel like we start off too negatively too often in these videos. First off, I really like the vapor chamber cooling system inside of this computer. Sure, if you aren't all that into laptops, you might be surprised that I'm not talking about the beautiful display. I'm not talking about gaming like crazy or other flashy things that a product manager is going to put on the website to say, buy this. But thermal performance on a laptop is the number one thing that you need to look for. I mean, look, laptops get more powerful, the chassis get smaller, and if it's not properly vented and cooled, you are literally, as in literally, throwing money away. And why I think I'm able to appreciate this as much as I am right now is I've also been messing around with the XPS 50. Now, today's video isn't a comparison of these two. I do think we'll end up doing that this Friday, but what I want to mention is that both models of both computers that I bought have the same CPU and roughly the same GPU. So they're about as close as you can get, with the only real differences between the two computers being the size of the laptop itself and the cooling system inside of it. And I'm not going to spoil Friday's video here, but the conclusion is this vapor chamber is for real. When running the benchmarks that I'll show later in the video using Cinebench, video editing, etc., while the Intel tool would say that the processor is being thermally throttled, I don't actually understand why, because even when it's peaked and running that CPU at 100%, this computer never got over 75 or 80 degrees. That's impressive as heck. I don't care who you are, what operating system you choose to use, but having a laptop with an 8-core processor running full out and the system never redlines its heat, yeah, I'll praise that all day long. I'll praise that in a Mac, I'll praise that in Windows, I'll praise that in Linux, even though I've never used a Linux laptop. But if I found that in a Linux laptop, I'd praise it there too. Yes, you'll have to live with some fan noise during that redlining time, and yeah, it's not an M1 system, so there is more fan noise than I'd like, but it's not terrible, and it is on the better side of the Windows computers that I've also tried, and it's not distracting. And when you're not redlining it, you can barely tell that the fans are on at all. The next thing I've liked goes hand in hand with that thermal performance, and that's the power. I never really expected this to be a weak computer, but Intel has been going through a rough patch recently, and with how exciting and powerful the new Ryzen laptops offerings are, I didn't expect much here. Plus, the RTX 3050 is a step below the 3060, and I've seen that 3060 in a lot of budget-level laptops, so it also didn't give me that much hope from the 17. Well, I was wrong. And I'm absolutely impressed with the power on hand here. You get a much higher clock speed out of the same processor because it's not overheated, and in real use, that translates to some impressive things. If you know me, you'll know that I don't really care all that much about static benchmarks because benchmarks have never gotten my work done for me, but when using this for video editing, which as a project manager and a hobbyist YouTuber, that's the toughest thing I'm going to put a computer through, this has held up fantastically well using those high efficiency codecs that I'm always talking about. And when rendering that video out, it rendered it double real time. That's what I expect out of beefy gaming laptops, and this held its own against those, even doing better than some of those Ryzen laptops that I already mentioned. I know taking potshots at Intel is kind of the in thing now, and yeah, some of that is deserved with those super cringy anti-Apple advertisements. But these 11th gen chips, I'm impressed, and I think that they are the real deal, which ties into the next thing I've liked. You see, it's a link to a link to a link. All of these things tie together. That this is an Intel inside computer, so we keep Thunderbolt. Not only Thunderbolt, but we get several Thunderbolt 4 ports. You don't realize how important this is until it's gone. The only reason that I put up with a lack of Thunderbolt on some of those previous laptops we've checked out this year is because those are gaming laptops and they have lots of I/O built right into them. Things like HDMI, Ethernet, USB-A, etc. Well, if this were a Ryzen laptop and only had USB-C built in, I'd consider that unusable straight up. But because this is Thunderbolt, it seamlessly fits into my already existing desk setup perfectly. And if you'd like to see a video on that XPS desk setup, let me know in the comments below. I mean, seriously, one cable to the laptop and I've got keyboard, display, switching, everything. I love Thunderbolt. And maybe someday standard USB will catch up, but that day is not today. I love Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt doesn't pay me. Like, the Thunderbolt consortium isn't like standing right over there threatening me to say nice things. I just really like it. Also, I like that this continues to have an SD card slot built into it. If you aren't a content creator, you probably don't care about this that much, but for me, this is super clutch because I've legit had huge issues in the past where I'll lose or I'll break a dongle and I can no longer get my data off a card to make videos while I'm traveling. Hasn't happened much in the last 18 months to 2 years, but coming up soon, I'm going to start traveling again, so it is going to be a big deal going forward. And no such issue here. Now, I might need a dongle if I need to plug into HDMI, but thankfully, another like mini positive. This isn't a full positive. It's just a mini positive. Dell provides you an HDMI dongle in the box. You don't have to buy the $60 Apple dongle to connect to HDMI. That's classy. The next positive thing I find about the laptop is the laptop itself. This is a 17-inch laptop, which sounds like it should be gigantic, right? I mean, those laptops should be pretty big. I mean, heck, here's my 15-inch laptop from 10 years ago. Look at this thing. This laptop is smaller, lighter, and better ventilated than this 15-inch laptop. That's crazy. It's like all of the benefits of a big laptop: big comfy face for the keyboard, big loud speakers, a display that you could get lost in, but physically it feels more like a 15-inch laptop. It's wild. I know here through the internet it will be hard to get a scale of this, so much like me being wowed by the iPad Pro display and telling you to go check it out for the experience, you need to do the same for the XPS 17. It's the smallest big laptop that I've seen, and it is definitely worth seeing in person. And you know what? Let's talk that display. It's amazing. I have the FHD model because I value battery life over having a slightly crispier touchscreen, but even here, the display is gorgeous. It's color accurate. The bezels are so small that when you're working with the computer, they seem to just fade away, and it's like a floating screen. It's just in front of you, and all of that extra room at the bottom is so nice, especially from somebody that lives in the land of bezels called Macville. I have absolutely no problem saying that this is what a laptop should look like. If you are a manufacturer making these products, I mean, sure, don't copy XPS verbatim, but get rid of your bezels, have a comfy, soft, non-smudgy, yes, that was in all caps in the scripts, bodies that don't get dirty, and make your big machines as small as you can while keeping them properly thermally managed. Triple thumbs up. I don't have 3 thumbs, but triple thumbs up to this laptop body. I would pay all of the money for this exact laptop to officially run Mac OS. It's not in the script, but something I wanted to say, this has Windows Hello, which has been very nice to just open the laptop, it authenticates and unlocks. And I like that we can fully upgrade the 2 sticks of RAM and have 2 fully open M.2 SSDs. And both of those drives come with copper plates and thermal pads installed. So if you want to upgrade your laptop like we did the other day, it takes literal seconds and you don't have to buy or source any other parts to make it work. Well, besides the RAM and the additional SSDs. That's all the happiness. I do have one meh before we get into the negatives, and this one is kind of weird, but it's the keyboard. The keyboard, it's good and it's bad at the same time. So when you add those two together, it turns into a meh. It's good in that the keys are super comfortable to type on, everything is well spaced out, and it's got a well-angled and positioned setup. Well, that's all good though, right, Gary? Yes, but despite all that, and this is probably a me thing, it's been really hard for me to get into a typing groove with the 17. I have no idea what the problem is, but something about this layout has caused me all sorts of problems and typos while working. I just cannot get through a whole sentence without messing something up. And is it fair to have a personal problem labeled in a video like this? Honestly, I don't know, but I like to give my full experience, and this is so weird that I wanted to mention this. I haven't had this problem on a single other computer, but something about this in my hands, they just don't work well together. It's not all sunshines and mess. Let's move on to the things I don't like, and there aren't that many, honest. The biggest dislike I have with this computer is the trackpad. I had a similar problem with the 2020 9700 XPS 17 from last year, but there is a slight click to this pad. Listen. Like, if it was standard across the board, I could say that that's just how the XPS trackpads feel. But my XPS 15 from both this year and last year don't have this problem. It's not awful, and I haven't had a usability problem due to it, but that little click is super annoying, and it's frustrating that we still have this issue a year later. And I've seen plenty of other folks have problems with it on the internet also. And the last thing I don't like is how much of a pain it can be to get the bottom of this chassis off if you do want to upgrade. We saw in my unboxing video that at least one of the screws were so tightly installed from the factory that it almost instantly stripped during removal, and we had to drill a hole into it to get some leverage with a different tipped screwdriver. Plus, even when you have the screws out, taking the bottom of this laptop off is a huge pain in the butt. It just sucks. I don't have these issues with any other brand of laptop, but the XPS 15 and 17 suck something special to get into. But at the end of the day, so what, right? Would I recommend the Dell XPS 17? Yes, I think I would. I really like this laptop, and I like it an awful lot more than I thought I would. I figured that between the XPS 15 and the 17, I would naturally gravitate towards the 15 because I like smaller tech, but the 17 is the one that I keep going back to every single day during this product cycle. It's incredibly powerful, very well designed thermally, and it has just been so easy to fit into my system. It's like it was meant to be there. Yes, there are absolutely some trackpad issues that you might need to return your first model to get fixed, or you need to be aware of these if you are going to buy them. But because of Dell's return policy, I'm not as concerned about that. If you can get a version that has a trackpad you are happy with, I'm not sure that there is a much better productivity/creation laptop on the market. I'm seriously considering using this as my travel laptop from now on because of how much power you get combined with how usable the laptop is without sacrificing for a smaller screen or a smaller keyboard. And if you like this video and you would like to see how to upgrade this or what comes in the box or any other sorts of things, I'll leave a link to my XPS 17 playlist that you can find by clicking right here. Click, 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 click. Thanks for watching.